CLEP History Reconstruction. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History Reconstruction clue? Reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Option A. Washington's neutrality policy. Option B. Harlem Renaissance. Option C. Byzantine Empire. Option D. Abolitionism. The correct answer is option D. Abolitionism. This points to abolitionism because the movement challenged slavery and intensified sectional conflict. Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars. Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s, and Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Question 2. How in CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue? The United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Option A. 17th Amendment. Option B. Spanish-American War. Option C. Triangular trade. Option D. Martin Luther. The correct answer is option B. Spanish-American War. This points to Spanish-American War because the war marked a shift toward American imperial power. 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History Reconstruction? Post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order? Option A. Marshall Plan in Europe. Option B. Conservatism. Option C. Korean War. Option D. Aristotle. The correct answer is option B. Conservatism. This points to conservatism because conservatives sought stability after revolution and war. Marshall Plan in Europe points instead to U.S. aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue? Federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Option A. Chinese Exclusion Act. Option B. Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option C. Fascism. Option D. Marbury v. Madison. The correct answer is option A. Chinese Exclusion Act. This points to Chinese Exclusion Act because the act reflected nativism and racial exclusion. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. And Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review. Question 5. Where does this clue point in CLEP history content? Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Option A. Marshall Plan. Option B. Triangular trade. Option C. 30 Years' War. Option D. Hitler. The correct answer is option B. Triangular trade. This points to triangular trade because the system shows the economic connections of the colonial Atlantic world. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II. 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict, and Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History Reconstruction clue. Her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased Northern anti-slavery feeling? Option A. Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option B. Darwinism. Option C. Socialism. Option D. Thesis statement. The correct answer is option A. Harriet Beecher Stowe. This points to Harriet Beecher Stowe because the book made slavery's cruelty more visible to many readers. Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. And thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Option A. Aristotle. Option B. Pearl Harbor. Option C. Prohibition. Option D. French and Indian War. The correct answer is option D. French and Indian War. This points to French and Indian War because the war reshaped North America and intensified imperial tensions. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher-emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II, and Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP-style clue. Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Option A. Federal Reserve Act. Option B. French and Indian War. Option C. Copernicus. Option D. Cotton gin. The correct answer is option A. Federal Reserve Act. This points to Federal Reserve Act because the act reshaped U.S. banking and monetary policy. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. And cotton gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Question 9. Determine which answer explains the CLEP History Reconstruction clue. Politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Option A. New imperialism. Option B. Nationalism. Option C. Jacksonian democracy. Option D. Indian Removal Act. The correct answer is option C. Jacksonian democracy. This points to Jacksonian democracy because the era broadened participation for many white men while excluding women and most Black Americans. New imperialism points instead to European states' expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity, and Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Option A. Harlem Renaissance. Option B. Jamestown. Option C. Militarism. Option D. Common sense. The correct answer is option A. Harlem Renaissance. This points to Harlem Renaissance because the movement celebrated Black culture and creativity. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Militarism points instead to arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I, and common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 11. Pinpoint the best answer for this history clue. The first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Option A. Articles of Confederation. Option B. Japanese American internment. Option C. Hitler. Option D. Chinese Exclusion Act. The correct answer is option A. Articles of Confederation. This points to Articles of Confederation because its weaknesses helped lead to calls for a stronger constitution. Japanese American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology, and Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. Many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. Option A. Monroe Doctrine. Option B. Manifest Destiny. Option C. Saratoga. Option D. Columbian Exchange. The correct answer is option B. Manifest Destiny. This points to manifest destiny because the idea justified expansion while increasing conflict over land and slavery. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States, and Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Question 13. Compare the options and choose the one tied to this clue. Slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Option A. Secession. Option B. 13th Amendment. Option C. Ancient Egypt. Option D. Second Great Awakening. The correct answer is option B. 13th Amendment. This points to 13th Amendment because the amendment legally ended slavery after the Civil War. Secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization. And Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Question 14. Connect this CLEP History Reconstruction clue to the right answer. The federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank. Option A, Fall of Western Rome. Option B, Rousseau. Option C, Hamilton's financial plan. Option D, Council of Trent. The correct answer is option C, Hamilton's financial plan. This points to Hamilton's financial plan because the plan strengthened federal credit and promoted a more commercial economy. Fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Rousseau points instead to a thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty, and Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. A nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Option A, Second Great Awakening. Option B, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option C, Declaration of Independence. Option D, Harlem Renaissance. The correct answer is option B, Cuban Missile Crisis. This points to Cuban Missile Crisis because the crisis became a major Cold War confrontation. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements such as abolition and temperance. Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. And Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue among challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Option A, periodization. Option B, Martin Luther. Option C, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option D, Peloponnesian War. The correct answer is option B, Martin Luther. This points to Martin Luther because his criticisms questioned Catholic authority and doctrine. Periodization points instead to history is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points. Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade, and Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Question 17. Interpret this clue and choose the best answer. A French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Option A, Estates-General. Option B, Articles of Confederation. Option C, 3-5 Compromise. Option D, Watergate. The correct answer is option A, Estates-General. This points to Estates-General because its meeting helped launch the French Revolution. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. 3-5 Compromise points instead to enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation, and Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. Improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Option A, Roe v. Wade. Option B, Yorktown. Option C, steam engine. Option D, Montgomery bus boycott. The correct answer is option C, steam engine. This points to steam engine because steam power accelerated industrial growth. Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him, and Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. New foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Option A, feudalism. Option B, source bias. Option C, Columbian exchange. Option D, Newton. The correct answer is option C, Columbian exchange. This points to Columbian exchange because it describes the widespread biological and cultural exchange after 1492. Feudalism points instead to landholding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions, and Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. The peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Option A, Treaty of Versailles. Option B, Gilded Age. Option C, Mexican-American War. Option D, Second Great Awakening. The correct answer is option A, Treaty of Versailles. This points to Treaty of Versailles because the treaty shaped post-war tensions despite U.S. refusal to join the League. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth and deep inequality and political corruption. Mexican-American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion, and Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Question 21. Match this CLEP History Reconstruction clue with the correct answer. A mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Option A, Crimean War. Option B, Bolsheviks. Option C, conservatism. Option D, New Deal. The correct answer is option A, Crimean War. This points to Crimean War because the conflict affected the balance of power after Vienna. Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order, and New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform. Question 22. Distinguish the correct answer from similar history topics. Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Option A, Holocaust. Option B, Punic Wars. Option C, Yorktown. Option D, 30 Years' War. The correct answer is option C, Yorktown. This points to Yorktown because the victory effectively ended major fighting in the Revolution. Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean, and 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Question 23. Locate in CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue. Rapid industrial growth had deep inequality and political corruption? Option A, Athenian democracy. Option B, Gilded Age. Option C, European coal and steel community. Option D, French and Indian War. The correct answer is option B, Gilded Age. This points to Gilded Age because the term describes late 19th century prosperity mixed with serious social problems. Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision making. European coal and steel community points instead to Western European states pooled coal and steel production after World War II, and French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. Political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. Option A, Treaty of Versailles. Option B, Freedmen's Bureau. Option C, liberalism. Option D, Washington's neutrality policy. The correct answer is option C, liberalism. This points to liberalism because liberalism challenged absolutism and traditional privilege. Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations, and territorial losses after World War I. Freedmen's Bureau points instead to a federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War, and Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars. Question 25. Decide which option this CLEP history clue describes. Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Option A, German unification. Option B, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option C, Truman Doctrine. Option D, Hitler. The correct answer is option A, German unification. This points to German unification because the new German Empire became a major European power. Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States promised aid to resist communist expansion, and Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 26. Evaluate in CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue. A Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities? Option A, Calvinism. Option B, 14th Amendment. Option C, Pax Romana. Option D, feudalism. The correct answer is option A, Calvinism. This points to Calvinism because Calvin's ideas influenced reform movements across Europe. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Pax Romana points instead to the Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity, and feudalism points instead to landholding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Question 27. Consider this clue and identify the historical match. Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper and tea. Option A, Declaration of Independence. Option B, Brown v. Board of Education. Option C, Townshend Acts. Option D, Plato. The correct answer is option C, Townshend Acts. This points to Townshend Acts because the acts renewed colonial protests against imperial taxation. Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Brown v. Board of Education points instead to the Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional, and Plato points instead to a philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. Question 28. Predict the answer. A CLEP item is targeting a heliocentric model. Place the sun at the center of the solar system. Option A, thesis statement. Option B, 14th Amendment. Option C, Athenian democracy. Option D, Copernicus. The correct answer is option D, Copernicus. This points to Copernicus because his theory challenged geocentric astronomy. Thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution, and Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. European integration created shared institutions and a common market? Option A, European Union. Option B, French and Indian War. Option C, Proclamation of 1763. Option D, Vietnam War. The correct answer is option A, European Union. This points to European Union because the EU grew from post-war cooperation. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians, and Vietnam War points instead to US escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. The English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England? Option A, Alexander the Great. Option B, Punic Wars. Option C, Congress of Vienna. Option D, Henry VIII. The correct answer is option D, Henry VIII. This points to Henry VIII because the break began the English Reformation. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the western Mediterranean, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. A French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society. Option A, 3-5 Compromise. Option B, Wilmot Proviso. Option C, Women's Suffrage. Option D, Dreyfus Affair. The correct answer is option D, Dreyfus Affair. This points to Dreyfus Affair because the affair revealed tensions in the Third Republic. 3-5 Compromise points instead to enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation. Wilmot Proviso points instead to a proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico, and Women's Suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Question 32. Assess the clue and select a correct history term. Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Option A, Proclamation of 1763. Option B, Red Scare. Option C, Truman Doctrine. Option D, Fall of the Berlin Wall. The correct answer is option A, Proclamation of 1763. This points to Proclamation of 1763 because the policy angered colonists who wanted access to Western lands. Red Scare points instead to fear of radicals, and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States promised aid to resist communist expansion, and Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. An abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Option A, Progressive Era. Option B, Cotton Gin. Option C, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option D, John Brown's Raid. The correct answer is option D, John Brown's Raid. This points to John Brown's Raid because the raid increased sectional fear before the Civil War. Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability, and Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Question 34. Infer in CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue. Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Option A, Cotton Gin. Option B, Louisiana Purchase. Option C, Julius Caesar. Option D, Charlemagne. The correct answer is option A, Cotton Gin. This points to Cotton Gin because the invention strengthened the cotton economy and deepened dependence on enslaved labor. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic, and Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. Movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Option A, Printing Press. Option B, Shays Rebellion. Option C, Scientific Revolution. Option D, Townsend Acts. The correct answer is option A, Printing Press. This points to printing press because printing accelerated the Renaissance and Reformation. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature, and Townsend Acts points instead to Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. A philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Option A, Reaganomics. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Justinian Code. Option D, Proclamation of 1763. The correct answer is option B, Aristotle. This points to Aristotle because his writings influenced science, ethics, and politics for centuries. Reaganomics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Justinian Code points instead to Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law, and Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Option A, Munich Conference. Option B, Printing Press. Option C, Bolsheviks. Option D, Glorious Revolution. The correct answer is option D, Glorious Revolution. This points to Glorious Revolution because the event limited monarchy and supported constitutional government. Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Printing Press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly, and Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Question 38. Practice this CLEP-style match. Schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Option A, Monroe Doctrine. Option B, medieval universities. Option C, Martin Luther. Option D, Compromise of 1877. The correct answer is option B, medieval universities. This points to medieval universities because universities became centers of learning in medieval Europe. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Martin Luther points instead to a monk-challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation, and Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. A proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico? Option A. Trail of Tears. Option B. Decolonization. Option C. Wilmot Proviso. Option D. Treaty of Versailles. The correct answer is option C. Wilmot Proviso. This points to Wilmot Proviso because the proposal sharpened sectional conflict over expansion. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Decolonization points instead to colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II, and Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. The disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Option A. Gilded Age. Option B. Black Death. Option C. War of 1812. Option D. Compromise of 1877. The correct answer is option D. Compromise of 1877. This points to Compromise of 1877 because the compromise marked the end of Reconstruction. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth to deep inequality and political corruption. Black Death points instead to plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society, and War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. A Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis? Option A. Diocletian. Option B. Hitler. Option C. Radical Republicans. Option D. Lend-Lease. The correct answer is option A. Diocletian. This points to Diocletian because his reforms tried to stabilize the empire. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Radical Republicans points instead to a congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people, and Lend-Lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Question 42. Solve in CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue? Pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization? Option A. Holocaust. Option B. Romanticism. Option C. Ancient Egypt. Option D. Industrial Revolution. The correct answer is option C. Ancient Egypt. This points to ancient Egypt because Egypt's stability depended heavily on the Nile and centralized kingship. Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression, and Industrial Revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation? Option A. Stamp Act. Option B. Christianity. Option C. Bill of Rights. Option D. Intolerable Acts. The correct answer is option A. Stamp Act. This points to Stamp Act because it became a major early dispute over taxation without colonial representation. Christianity points instead to a religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse, and Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Question 44. Find the option that best fits this clue. Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France? Option A. Compromise of 1877. Option B. Peloponnesian War. Option C. Louisiana Purchase. Option D. Darwinism. The correct answer is option C. Louisiana Purchase. This points to Louisiana Purchase because the purchase expanded Western settlement and raised constitutional questions. compromise of 1,877 points instead to the disputed 1,876 election ended with federal troops leaving the south. Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states, and Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Question 45. Remember which topic connects to this clue. Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror? Option A, 13th Amendment. Option B, Stalin. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, Japanese-American internment. The correct answer is option B, Stalin. This points to Stalin because his policies transformed the USSR at enormous human cost. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II, and Japanese-American internment points instead to the US government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Question 46. Highlight the answer described by this clue. A federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. Option A, Jacksonian democracy. Option B, Alexander the Great. Option C, Freedmen's Bureau. Option D, Spanish-American War. The correct answer is option C, Freedmen's Bureau. This points to Freedmen's Bureau because it provided help with education, labor contracts, and basic needs. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics, expanded white male suffrage, and celebrated the common man. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest, spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East, and Spanish-American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Option A, Mayflower Compact. Option B, Dust Bowl. Option C, Embargo Act. Option D, Steam Engine. The correct answer is option A, Mayflower Compact. This points to Mayflower Compact because it showed an early colonial commitment to majority rule and civil government. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France, and Steam Engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Question 48. Clarify which history topic this clue describes. Conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Option A, Renaissance humanism. Option B, economic interpretation. Option C, atomic bombings. Option D, War of 1812. The correct answer is option D, War of 1812. This points to War of 1812 because the war reinforced national pride and highlighted trade and maritime issues. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. And atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Option A, Pearl Harbor. Option B, 13th Amendment. Option C, Red Scare. Option D, Whiskey Rebellion. The correct answer is option A, Pearl Harbor. This points to Pearl Harbor because the attack ended U.S. neutrality in the war. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Red Scare points instead to fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. And Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Option A, Marbury v. Madison. Option B, Second Great Awakening. Option C, Congress of Vienna. Option D, Copernicus. The correct answer is option C, Congress of Vienna. This points to Congress of Vienna because the settlement tried to prevent another continent-wide war. Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance, and Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. Question 51. Differentiate the matching answer from other periods. Historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Option A, Vietnam War. Option B, Townsend Acts. Option C, Fall of the Berlin Wall. Option D, corroboration. The correct answer is option D, corroboration. This points to corroboration because corroboration helps avoid relying on one source alone. Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Townsend Acts points instead to Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea, and Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Option A, urbanization. Option B, Articles of Confederation. Option C, intolerable acts. Option D, steam engine. The correct answer is option C, intolerable acts. This points to intolerable acts because the laws pushed colonies toward greater unity against Britain. Urbanization points instead to industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly, and steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Question 53. Question: which answer a CLEP item would expect? Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana. Option A, Shays Rebellion. Option B, Jacksonian democracy. Option C, European Coal and Steel Community. Option D, Augustus. The correct answer is option D, Augustus. This points to Augustus because his rule began the Roman Empire's long period of stability. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man, and European Coal and Steel Community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. Farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Option A, Stalin. Option B, Copernicus. Option C, McCarthyism. Option D, Shays Rebellion. The correct answer is option D, Shays Rebellion. This points to Shays Rebellion because the uprising convinced many leaders that the national government needed more power. Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system, and McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Question 55. Revisit this history clue and choose its match. Scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Option A, Louisiana Purchase. Option B, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option C, Renaissance humanism. Option D, Glorious Revolution. The correct answer is option C, Renaissance humanism. This points to Renaissance humanism because humanism shaped Renaissance art, education, and literature. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Marshall Plan in Europe points instead to U.S. aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. And Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Question 56. Discover which answer this CLEP clue describes. A historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Option A, salutary neglect. Option B, Columbian exchange. Option C, socialism. Option D, thesis statement. The correct answer is option D, thesis statement. This points to thesis statement because a thesis guides interpretation rather than merely listing facts. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Columbian exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. And socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. A military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Option A, printing press. Option B, monorealism. Option C, Napoleon Bonaparte. Option D, corroboration. The correct answer is option C, Napoleon Bonaparte. This points to Napoleon Bonaparte because his rule reshaped European politics and law. Printing press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society, and corroboration points instead to historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Question 58. Read the clue and select a matching topic. Thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Option A, Gilded Age. Option B, thesis statement. Option C, historical context. Option D, scientific revolution. The correct answer is option D, scientific revolution. This points to scientific revolution because the movement transformed European science. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth could deep inequality and political corruption. Thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence, and historical context points instead to events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time. Question 59. Complete the exam-style clue with the correct answer. People emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Option A, Jamestown. Option B, Peace of Westphalia. Option C, Reign of Terror. Option D, nationalism. The correct answer is option D, nationalism. This points to nationalism because nationalism shaped unification movements and conflicts. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. And Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Question 60. Decode this history clue and choose the right answer. The Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Option A, conservatism. Option B, Diocletian. Option C, Dred Scott decision. Option D, triangular trade. The correct answer is option C, Dred Scott decision. This points to Dred Scott decision because the decision inflamed sectional tensions before the Civil War. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis, and triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Option A, Proclamation of 1763. Option B, Roman Republic. Option C, War of 1812. Option D, Treaty of Versailles. The correct answer is option B, Roman Republic. This points to Roman Republic because the Republic influenced later ideas of mixed government. Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results, and Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. The United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Option A, Monroe Doctrine. Option B, Trail of Tears. Option C, Treaty of Versailles. Option D, feudalism. The correct answer is option A, Monroe Doctrine. This points to Monroe Doctrine because the doctrine asserted a U.S. role in the Western Hemisphere. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations, and feudalism points instead to land holding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Question 63. Rank the choices by relevance and pick the best match. Accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Option A, House of Burgesses. Option B, McCarthyism. Option C, Congress of Vienna. Option D, decolonization. The correct answer is option B, McCarthyism. This points to McCarthyism because the term refers to anti-communist suspicion and aggressive investigations. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government. Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat, and decolonization points instead to colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Question 64. Prioritize the clue and select the correct history answer. Delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Option A, Constitutional Convention. Option B, Diocletian. Option C, Urbanization. Option D, Social Security Act. The correct answer is option A, Constitutional Convention. This points to Constitutional Convention because the meeting produced the U.S. Constitution in 1787. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Urbanization points instead to industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities, and Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Question 65. Focus on the clue and pick the correct option. A Renaissance writer analyzed political power in the prince. Option A, Dawes Act. Option B, Diocletian. Option C, New Deal. Option D, Machiavelli. The correct answer is option D, Machiavelli. This points to Machiavelli because his work separated politics from traditional moral advice. Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis, and New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery and reform. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. A long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. Option A, World War I alliances. Option B, 100 Years' War. Option C, Darwinism. Option D, Bolsheviks. The correct answer is option B, 100 Years' War. This points to 100 Years' War because the war changed military tactics and royal power. World War I alliances points instead to entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature, and Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Question 67. Apply your CLEP history knowledge to this clue. The Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Option A, Sputnik. Option B, Pearl Harbor. Option C, revolutions of 1848. Option D, Roman Republic. The correct answer is option A, Sputnik. This points to Sputnik because the event raised U.S. fears of falling behind technologically. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe, and Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? The United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Option A, atomic bombings. Option B, nationalism. Option C, Hitler. Option D, Socrates. The correct answer is option A, atomic bombings. This points to atomic bombings because the bombings helped end the Pacific War and began the nuclear age. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology, and Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry. Question 69. Promptly recognize which answer fits this clue. Journalists exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Option A, House of Burgesses. Option B, militarism. Option C, Diocletian. Option D, muckrakers. The correct answer is option D, muckrakers. This points to muckrakers because their reporting helped build support for progressive reforms. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government. Militarism points instead to arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I, and Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Question 70. Smartly select the best historical match. A Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Option A, Charlemagne. Option B, Newton. Option C, Roman Republic. Option D, Magna Carta. The correct answer is option A, Charlemagne. This points to Charlemagne because his coronation linked kingship with the church in medieval Europe. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites, and Magna Carta points instead to English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215. Question 71. Swiftly confirm the answer tied to this clue. Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Option A, common sense. Option B, Great Awakening. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, Hitler. The correct answer is option C, Yalta Conference. This points to Yalta Conference because the meeting shaped post-war divisions and Cold War tensions. Common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Great Awakening points instead to religious revival stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority, and Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 72. Diligently review and choose the matching answer. Reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Option A, Punic Wars. Option B, Iconoclasm. Option C, Constitutional Convention. Option D, Northern Renaissance. The correct answer is option D, Northern Renaissance. This points to Northern Renaissance because it often emphasized Christian learning and social criticism. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 73. Immediately decide which option the clue describes. Federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests and voting. Option A, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option B, French and Indian War. Option C, Persian Empire. Option D, Spanish Armada. The correct answer is option A, Voting Rights Act of 1965. This points to Voting Rights Act of 1965 because the act protected voting access, especially in the South. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples, and Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. A philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. Option A, Plato. Option B, Mexican minus American War. Option C, Fascism. Option D, Radical Republicans. The correct answer is option A, Plato. This points to Plato because his works shaped idealist philosophy and political thought. Mexican minus American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion. Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. And Radical Republicans points instead to a congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. Tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Option A, Dawes Act. Option B, Dred Scott Decision. Option C, John Brown's Raid. Option D, Northern Renaissance. The correct answer is option A, Dawes Act. This points to Dawes Act because the policy reduced tribal land holdings and attacked communal ownership. Dred Scott Decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. John Brown's Raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners, and Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading the CLEP- style clue? Settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Option A, Yalta Conference. Option B, Nationalism. Option C, Homestead Act. Option D, Black Codes. The correct answer is option C, Homestead Act. This points to Homestead Act because the act encouraged migration to the Great Plains. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity, and Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Question 77. Think through this clue and identify the answer. European Christians launched military campaigns toward the Eastern Mediterranean? Option A. John Locke. Option B. Crusades. Option C. Sherman Antitrust Act. Option D. Martin Luther. The correct answer is option B. Crusades. This points to Crusades because the Crusades increased contact and conflict between regions. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade, and Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits. An international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation? Option A. Jacksonian democracy. Option B. Gilded Age. Option C. 30 Years' War. Option D. United Nations. The correct answer is option D. United Nations. This points to United Nations because the UN reflected hopes for collective security after global war. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth had deep inequality and political corruption, and 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select the correct option. Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. Option A. Point of view. Option B. New Deal. Option C. Council of Trent. Option D. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. The correct answer is option C. Council of Trent. This points to Council of Trent because the council was central to the Catholic Reformation. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform, and Triangle Shirtwaist Fire points instead to a deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Question 80. Study in CLEP History Reconstruction, which answer fits this clue? Soviet collapse ended the decades - long US - Soviet rivalry. Option A. John Brown's raid. Option B. Steam engine. Option C. Conservatism. Option D. End of the Cold War. The correct answer is option D. End of the Cold War. This points to end of the Cold War because the event transformed global politics after 1991. John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. And conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answer. A deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Option A. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option B. Ancient Egypt. Option C. Causation. Option D. Constantine. The correct answer is option A. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. This points to Triangle Shirtwaist Fire because the disaster exposed dangerous industrial working conditions. Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long - lasting civilization. Causation points instead to historians explain how one development helped produce another, and Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Question 82. Drill this history clue and pick the best match. Voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Option A. Manifest Destiny. Option B. European Union. Option C. Missouri Compromise. Option D. 15th Amendment. The correct answer is option D. 15th Amendment. This points to 15th Amendment because the amendment aimed to protect black male suffrage during Reconstruction. Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market, and Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Question 83. Speedily review and select the answer tied to this clue. Old - regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change. Option A. 14th Amendment. Option B. Spanish - American War. Option C. French Revolution. Option D. Progressive Era. The correct answer is option C. French Revolution. This points to French Revolution because the revolution transformed France and Europe. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Spanish-American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories, and Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare, and civil rights. Option A, Ancient Egypt. Option B, Columbian Exchange. Option C, Washington's neutrality policy. Option D, Great Society. The correct answer is option D, Great Society. This points to Great Society because the initiative expanded the welfare state and federal reform efforts. Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization. Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres, and Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. Analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Option A, Homestead Act. Option B, Crusades. Option C, Manifest Destiny. Option D, Continuity and Change. The correct answer is option D, Continuity and Change. This points to continuity and change because this skill is common in history interpretation. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the Eastern Mediterranean, and Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Option A, Industrial Revolution. Option B, Council of Trent. Option C, Printing Press. Option D, Munich Conference. The correct answer is option D, Munich Conference. This points to Munich Conference because the agreement became a symbol of failed appeasement. Industrial Revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices, and Printing Press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. A thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty. Option A, Brown v. Board of Education. Option B, Enlightenment. Option C, Scientific Revolution. Option D, Rousseau. The correct answer is option D, Rousseau. This points to Rousseau because his ideas influenced democratic and revolutionary politics. Brown v. Board of Education points instead to the Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition, and Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Question 88. Sort the choices and pick the one. This clue describes evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Option A, Kansas-Nebraska Act. Option B, Shays Rebellion. Option C, Dreyfus Affair. Option D, Source Bias. The correct answer is option D, Source Bias. This points to source bias because recognizing bias improves historical interpretation. Kansas-Nebraska Act points instead to popular sovereignty reopened the slavery question in Western territories. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation, and Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. Land holding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Option A, feudalism. Option B, Berlin Conference. Option C, Holocaust. Option D, Stalin. The correct answer is option A, feudalism. This points to feudalism because the system organized political and military obligations. Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. And Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans and political terror. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue: laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Option A, Newton. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, Council of Trent. Option D, Louisiana Purchase. The correct answer is option A, Newton. This points to Newton because his work became a foundation of modern science. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. And Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Question 91. Mark the best response to this CLEP clue: Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism and legitimacy problems. Option A, Constitutional Convention. Option B, Hitler. Option C, Weimar Republic. Option D, Dred Scott Decision. The correct answer is option C, Weimar Republic. This points to Weimar Republic because its weakness helped create conditions for Nazi rise. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology, and Dred Scott Decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Question 92. Pick the option that completes this history clue: radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Option A, Gettysburg. Option B, Monroe Doctrine. Option C, Reign of Terror. Option D, Alexander the Great. The correct answer is option C, Reign of Terror. This points to Reign of Terror because the period showed the revolution's violent radical phase. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas, and Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue: enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation. Option A, Italian unification. Option B, Weimar Republic. Option C, 3-5 Compromise. Option D, Treaty of Versailles. The correct answer is option C, 3-5 Compromise. This points to 3-5 Compromise because the compromise showed slavery's influence on constitutional politics. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems, and Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations and territorial losses after World War I. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. The Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity. Option A, Pax Romana. Option B, Watergate. Option C, Alexander the Great. Option D, D-Day. The correct answer is option A, Pax Romana. This points to Pax Romana because this period helped trade and imperial culture flourish. Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East, and D-Day points instead to Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. A canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. Option A, Erie Canal. Option B, Thesis Statement. Option C, Homestead Act. Option D, Punic Wars. The correct answer is option A, Erie Canal. This points to Erie Canal because it helped link Western farms to Eastern markets. Thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements, and Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. Birth rates rose after World War II. Option A, GI Bill. Option B, Augustus. Option C, Baby Boom. Option D, Enlightenment. The correct answer is option C, Baby Boom. This points to baby boom because the demographic shift shaped suburbs, schools, and consumer culture. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana, and Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. A reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Option A, Montesquieu. Option B, Jane Addams. Option C, socialism. Option D, 3-5 compromise. The correct answer is option B, Jane Addams. This points to Jane Addams because settlement houses addressed problems of industrial cities. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. And 3-5 compromise points instead to enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. Resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, Reaganomics. Option B, Stonewall Uprising. Option C, secondary source. Option D, Hitler. The correct answer is option B, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Reaganomics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. And Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 99. Resolve which answer this clue is testing. The Supreme Court established judicial review. Option A, Bill of Rights. Option B, Missouri Compromise. Option C, Marbury v. Madison. Option D, Renaissance Humanism. The correct answer is option C, Marbury v. Madison. This points to Marbury v. Madison because the case confirmed the court's power to declare laws unconstitutional. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. And Renaissance Humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. Farmers demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy. Option A, Populist movement. Option B, Emancipation Proclamation. Option C, German unification. Option D, Crusades. The correct answer is option A, Populist movement. This points to populist movement because the movement reflected rural anger over debt, prices, and corporate power. Emancipation Proclamation points instead to Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. German unification points instead to Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. And Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the Eastern Mediterranean.